Welcome to this episode of Better Life Today. I am so excited to be joined by Lesa and Lesa Isensee and Lesa Budd from ASAP Ministries. And I want to talk about what ASAP Ministries is, but first, you were sharing a story with me of something that happened recently that really caught my attention, and I think it's a beautiful way to introduce the ministry and what you guys are doing for Jesus. Tell me about that.
Well, for us, this story really began last January 2020, so a year and a half ago. And we had traveled over to Southeast Asia. We were going to a closed country. And so even though it was a mission trip to us, we wouldn't anywhere put, when we were there, we're on a mission trip. This was very kind of under wraps why we were really there. Yeah. And we were going to do some humanitarian work, and of course we were going to worship with some other believers on Sabbath. Well, when we got there, they told us something terrible has happened. A brand new Christian, only been a Christian for about a year and a half, but was already leading others to Christ in a village near to this church where we were going, had been killed in a tragic vehicle accident. And that the chiefs and the leaders of that village not only were, of course adding to their grief, but saying, you must not go to that church anymore. Those who are going will not be allowed. If they go Saturday morning, Sabbath morning, they will not be allowed back in the village that evening.
So you're at a decision point there. A lot of people, I think, would say, well, this is a sign that maybe this is the wrong time to even be doing this. Maybe we need to postpone or something like that. And to be faced with that as a ministry, what gets you through that? So tell me a little bit about ASAP Ministries and what leads you into these situations. What is the calling and what does the organization do?
Well, ASAP Ministries started about 26 years ago, and it started out of work to refugees in Southeast Asia.
Okay.
But as the years have gone by, it has grown. It stands for Advocates for Southeast Asians and the Persecuted. And we work in a number of countries, not just in Southeast Asia, but among the unreached, those in the 1040 window, the poor, the persecuted, and among refugees. And today we're going to really talk about the persecuted, because our Christian brothers and sisters are in places where they may know they're going to lose their bank account for serving Christ. They may be put in prison for serving Christ. And this is an area that's not talked about as much. And so one of the special things that we're a part of, ASAP Ministries has over 600 national missionaries in a number of different countries. We have, I think, 90-some schools, over 5,000 students, mostly in animist Buddhist communities.
Okay.
And a lot of humanitarian efforts as well as evangelical sharing Jesus thrusts.
So animus, what is that? I'm not familiar with that term.
Well, sometimes animism can be in a Buddhist culture.
Okay.
Sometimes it's maybe in the countries more Buddhist, but the tribes may follow more a kind of animism. And animism is really that you believe that the spirits are in everything. And you're, if there'd be maybe a spirit for this chair, there'd be a spirit for the woods, a spirit for the trees. And so all around them are these spirits, many of them with malvolent intentions, they believe. And so they're afraid of this. They keep appeasing it. Animism often is also included with ancestor worship and, that connection to it. And
for instance, when we were over in this country, you might go for a walk and there'd be this big, beautiful tree, and there would be like ropes tied around it with gifts in it, like water bottles full of water or fruit or flowers or something like that, to try to appease that spirit of the tree. And they really have a first-hand knowledge of spirits that aren't very friendly. And that's why they understand we got to appease these guys. So they really do have to live in that culture
and live in fear.
Live in fear.
This is really one of the things that they feel.
They're really prisoners to it.
Yeah, and even it really bankrupts their literally their communities, because they're always doing things to appease the spirits. And the shaman, we would call it a witch doctor. The witch doctor may say, you need to sacrifice chickens, or you need to sacrifice your ox to have healing for whatever it might be. And these kinds of things are incredibly damaging to already poor people.
Sure.
That's what I was thinking too, is they don't have it, but they try to figure out, how can I appease them?
Yeah.
So how then, I mean, that's a lot of inertia to overcome. How does a ministry like yours, how do you get in there? Especially when, in that story, and we'll get to hear the rest of it later, in that story, something has happened and evil spirits were involved. So how are you able to get into these communities?
Well, we go about it Jesus' way, and that is to go where the people are, to see what their needs are, and then to help them. And we also believe that national missionaries have a special way because they already understand the culture. They already understand the language. So if I can just share a quick story of one of the workers that I met a couple of years ago. He was a young man that had graduated from seminary, and he wanted to raise up churches in his country. And he was, just praying about, how could I do this? And he realized that there was a village that did not have a school. And he thought, I'm going to go to that village and see if they will hire me as the teacher. And so he went to this village and said, I'm willing to come and teach your students, the children of this village. You will not have to even pay me, but I need you to know that if I come, I'm going to share about Jesus, my best friend, and I'm going to teach them stories from my holy book, from the Bible. And if that's all right with you, I will come and live with you and be your teacher. And you could, you could just tell the people were looking around, we don't want a Christian, to come to our village. And then somebody asked him, how much education do you have? And he said, well, I'm a college graduate. I graduated from seminary. And they looked at each other, and they said the highest educated teacher we've ever had in this village was 6th grade. We have to have this guy come.
Right.
He's even willing to come for free.
Yeah, we can contain him. But let's get him here so we can use him.
Yeah, and so he said, please pray, because when I met him, he'd only been doing this for about 3 months. And he said, I'm just praying that God will help me to raise up 4 churches in the 4 villages that those students are coming from. And he said, the children, they love the Bible stories. They'll say, now tell me that one again about the guy that was really tall and he got, cut down, and, he'll tell these stories, and they're going home to their families singing. And this is in a village that's probably 98% Buddhist.
Okay.
So, we're meeting a need by sending an ASAP missionary there.
Right.
And another way that we helped when we were over there, it wasn't, like you can do any kind of evangelism, but what we were part of was a 3rd stage of a water system. They had, the first group of people had it gone and put in like a water tower between like 3-4 villages, and also there was a school there, a public school. Well, the next group came and they started hooking up or making like a water, it looked like kind of a trough almost at the school. And then when we came, we hooked up the water system to that so that the young people would have a place to wash their hands.
Right.
Get drinking water.
Get drinking water, clean water. And so that benefit
that whole community
was benefiting the whole community.
Yeah.
And we had like a little ceremony where they handed that over to the governments, that now this belongs to you.
Right.
Yeah.
So those types of things just speaks volumes. Plus in one of the villages, we had a nice church.
Right.
Yeah. And in a place like this, they've never had running water before.
Yeah.
And so what a change, what a humanitarian change that really opens them up to even learning more.
Yeah.
And I want to share, this particular one, a family of 4 kids and 2 parents said, we want to adopt a village. And they adopted this village where we already had an ASAP national missionary, and they adopted that village to provide, a water tower, water, for I think $10,000. They could never have come up with that money in that village.
Right.
and yet very, very attainable for many
Right.
people.
And
in the
this
States.
isn't trying to find a back door to get to the real goal.
This
This
is to
is the
serve
goal
the
is to
people.
serve. Yeah.
Yes, this is to serve the people. And yeah.
Well, what a blessing. These are my favorite kinds of stories because God looks for, in my opinion, God looks for a reason, a willingness to serve, to do what I can. And you know, we sometimes limit ourselves to whatever the tools we think we have, when all God is asking is just open yourself and you'll be amazed. And so we get to hear the stories of how he's using you. What drew you into the ministry?
Well, for me, I had my daughter and I were, I guess we were already involved in ASAP Ministries because my background is in church planting.
Okay.
And this is a church planting movement.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And so, you know, our family was part of helping that. But my daughter was, I can't remember if it was going to be her sophomore year, our oldest daughter. We have 5 children. And our second child, Catherine, said, Mom, the thing I really want to do this year for school is to make sure we go on a mission trip. And my husband and I talked about it. We said, whatever it takes, we're going to make sure this happens.
Sure.
And so I took her and her cousin over to Southeast Asia on an ASAP mission trip. And that just caught me even more so than just knowing about the church plants, because now I'm meeting the church planters that are there. And it was really life-changing for her. And for me, they approached me later about working for ASAP Ministries, and it wasn't something I was looking for.
Yeah.
But the Lord just opened the door to be involved in both church planting and missions, which is a passion of mine.
All right, we're going to take a break. That's a perfect spot to pause because that hits my heart too.
Okay.
Because we get called and then we have a choice. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back right after this. We're talking with ASAP Ministries, Lisa Isensee and Lesa Budd. We'll be back.
Better Life Broadcasting is a viewer-supported Christian media ministry that offers streaming programming via apps on various devices. Please visit blbn.org to support Better Life or to get more information. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome back to this episode of Better Life Today. I have the absolute pleasure of speaking with Lisa Isensee and Lesa Budd from ASAP Ministries. And when we first started talking, you told us about a story of coming into a village, coming into an area, expecting to get to work and who you were going to work with, but everything changed. Let's go ahead and finish that story.
Okay, well, first of all, when we first got to this country, we had a delegation of the leaders of our denomination come to talk to us and just tell us, these are the things that you probably shouldn't do. You won't be persecuted, but after you leave, we could really get it.
So
And
you visiting an area can have repercussions on
we
the
had
local
to be real
people.
careful.
I have my American passport. I'm going to be able to come
Yep.
home, no problem. But the people that are our
That's
brothers and sisters there could really be in trouble.
So they're really being watched. And so we were there to do humanitarian things, and which they were really happy for.
Right.
And this group that came to speak with us, these leaders from our denomination were, one of them was the president even. And that's when he told us about this accident that Lisa had alluded to in the beginning, how this had happened. And I'll tell part of it, and then Lisa can jump in there and share the rest. But this young man, only been a Christian about 1.5 years, so enthusiastic for Jesus. And when these people find Jesus, they also find the Holy Spirit, and they understand spirits. And when they have the Holy Spirit touch their lives, they know this is the
is the real
Spirit.
thing.
This is the one
Right.
who's got the power. And so they just don't want to let go of that. So anyways, like she was saying, there was a large group of people who were coming from this man's village to our church. And they were being persecuted all along. But this very Sabbath, because of this accident, where this young man was on the back of a motorcycle and his friend was driving, and he was coming up around a curve as a truck filled with
Cabbages.
He was coming down the hill, lost his brakes, and he was trying to keep this truck to the inside curve, but the truck fell over and it hit the motorcycle. And when they came, they got the driver. He wasn't under the truck, but they said, "Was anyone with you?" And he said no, he was in shock.
In shock, yeah.
And when he woke up the next morning in the hospital, he said, "How's my friend?" And they said, "What do you mean? You said there was no one with you." And he said, "Yes, my friend was on the back."
On the back of the
That's when they lifted this truck, found out
they found him.
this friend was killed. And of course, we came there and heard this story. It happened on Monday. We were there here.
On Tuesday.
Happened Tuesday.
We're there
We
on
heard it on Thursday. And we were going to that very church in 2 days on Friday, on Sabbath morning.
Right.
So anyways, how about you tell from there, Lisa?
Well, I remember the thing that really struck me was here is this ultimatum that's given to these new believers. Most of them had never been baptized yet. They're just coming to the church. They're just learning stories about Jesus. They're finding this freedom and joy from the spirits that they have not had before.
That's right.
And just amazed by this God who loves them. And yet they're given this ultimatum, you know, choose this God that you're interested in, or choose your whole life, your living, your livelihood, your homes, your fields, the food that you have stored in your houses and your barns. And if you go to church Sabbath morning, you will not be allowed back in that evening. And so they're up against this huge, you know, quandary of a decision that they have to make.
And this heartbreak of
and
losing
already,
their friend.
you know, deeply grieving
yeah.
as a
Right.
community, and had to choose, what are they going to do? And I just thought, for us, how many of us, if we were told by people in authority, if you go to church this Saturday, you will not be allowed to go back to your house. Your bank accounts will be frozen. You'll lose your careers. And this is what they were being told. How many of us would go to church Saturday morning?
Right, right.
And so we're just praying, what is it going to look like?
Yeah.
And I remember getting to the church Saturday morning, and there were already people outside. And I went inside and I said, is the group here from the other village? Did they come?
Yeah.
And they said, they're over there in the corner of the church. And they were up front, you know, tears running down some of their faces, you know, dealing with all of this.
Sang the songs. Some of them were leading out up front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they told me, I talked with one man, and he said, Jesus did so much for me. If I can't leave my house and my business, he had a bed and breakfast in this village with no running water to his house and no electricity, but he had a bed and breakfast that he was prospering. And he said, if I can't leave my business for Jesus, then, you know, he's done so much for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one other part of this story that was very heartbreaking is this man who was killed. He was a young man.
21.
21. He had a wife who was 6 months pregnant. And so it was like this whole church, we could tell the whole church was just trying to gather around this poor young widow. And on top of that, his mom and his dad were very anti his new religion.
Yeah.
And so right away, the village people were even blaming this Christian group that they said, don't you dare go to church. They were blaming them. See what your God just did. See what the spirits are mad. And I mean, they had all kinds of, just all kinds of directions that were coming at them that would challenge anybody.
In their faith.
And yet
Well,
here they were. They came
They
to
came
church.
anyway. And yeah, there's so many layers to the story. You talked about how in that culture there were spirits in everything. There were spirits in the trees. There's probably a spirit in the truck. All of these things working to perhaps defend their community against these Christians.
Yeah, this new religion,
that are
you know.
coming in. And so not only are you risking losing your businesses because we're not going to let you back in, you had shared as we were talking how they were going to encircle the town or something,
Yeah.
right?
Or their houses, like they would literally disassemble someone's house if they said, you can't live here anymore in this village, we'll take your house apart and you move somewhere else. I mean, it was aggressive.
Yeah. And those things really happened in the year after we were there.
Yeah.
But this group showed up, and they showed up not believing they would be able to go back.
That's right.
But God has
With
a sense of humor.
little children.
You know, God has
Yes.
such a sense of humor, and He knows. And so even though it could have been the worst of possible times for us to show up, God used it. Because that afternoon we had an eyeglass clinic. And we put out all these glasses, and people stood in lines and came forward and had their
Eyes
tested for reading glasses.
Right.
Yeah.
And here all these people, you know, some of the people didn't know how to read. We'd give them a needle and thread, you know, here, get this into the
Yeah, then
needle.
you'd give them a stronger
You know, until they could
prescription.
finally thread it. And unbeknownst to us, there are several spies, or a couple spies, that came from that village to see who exactly came to
The
church.
chief sent them.
And they're looking around, and what are they doing in there? And so they went inside and got in line for reading glasses. And when they got back to the village, they're telling the chief, well, here it is, you know, here's who came to the village. And then they said, but look, we got these new reading glasses. I can see now, you know, I can see my list better. And the chief looked at that and he said, I want some reading glasses.
I want some too. He's like,
And so he made a declaration that they were allowed to come back for that night if we would come and do a reading glass clinic in their village. And so we did. We went there.
That's right.
Lisa and I didn't have to be part of the reading glass clinic,
That's
and
right.
so we prayer walked through the village.
Yeah.
And, you know, just we could tell stories from that.
Yeah.
But fast forward it, this group dealt with so much persecution that year. Sometimes the field supervisor would send me a little video and sent from one of the members or one of the pastors even, where they would have people standing out front of a house with machetes and hammers and, you know, whacking their hands with them and, you know, physically threatening them. In fact, some of the church members, they made move to a different part of the village. They were doing all of these things. And finally, the church leadership stepped in and said, you know, this really is illegal in this country. And yet, because we're not proselytizing them, they're coming to our church.
in fact, there was like 10 more groups of people after this group came to the church on Sabbath. There was like 10 more groups of people in the village that said, we want to know what you believe.
Well, because they saw these people stand for Christ.
Right.
And so more and more were saying, tell
Right.
us about what you believe. Why can you have peace? Especially the young widow that's 6 months pregnant and they're seeing her go through the grieving and yet trusting Jesus. It was powerful to them.
It was, and you know, something that was so amazing to us is that was the only Sabbath that we were going to be at that church while we were there. And so the timing even that tragedy happened was such that there was a group of Americans there that they took an offering up for this young widow. And we, of course, along with the rest of the people, gave what we could give.
Right.
And it was enough that they did it like a bank account for this young widow that would take her through about a year.
Right.
And, you know, it was like that village saw, here's a group of people they're doing amazing things for, you know, with the water system for all of our villages and our schools, but even they're taking such good care of their own people.
Right.
It just spoke volumes without having said a word.
Yeah, it's the Christ method.
Yeah. That's
right. It's
right.
being there and serving, and God honors that and provides even more opportunities. So that little thing we think we're doing, you know, the widow putting the coin in, we have no idea until we look back. And I mean, when you're in the middle of this, you're just right there. But to be able to look back and recount and now to share what you're sharing with us to inspire the rest of us to
You know,
participate.
in this persecuted country, there are so many more things that happen all the time.
Yeah.
But in this village, there were so many more things that happened that we don't even have time to tell you about.
But we should tell
But we need to tell
his
about
mom
what
and dad.
happened In April,
So
yes.
we just have about a minute left.
Yeah.
So I don't want to forget that we want to invite other people to
Right.
be able to
Be part of
participate
this,
in this
yes.
as well.
Well, let me tell you what happened in April.
Well, we have to tell them that.
I will tell that. I will tell about that.
All right.
So in April, I got a text from one of my friends over in this country, and she said, can you believe this? This is the communication that I just received. Yeah. And there were 122 people that were baptized in the church that we went to serve in, most of them from this other village
right.
that was
Wow.
so extremely persecuted
Right.
through the year. And some of them that were baptized were the father and the mother, the father-in-law of this widow, the mother-in-law of this widow, and the whole family
Yeah.
of the young man that
Praise
was
God.
killed.
Yeah.
So God is so good.
is.
And
All the
you
time.
know, we had in mind that this young man would be one of our next ASAP national missionaries. He was already leading other people to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want to share with those who are listening right now is that you can sponsor a national missionary through ASAP Ministries. If you go to our website, asapministries.org, you could choose a national missionary that you can sponsor full-time for a whole year. And I think it varies in what the cost, but the average is about $1,500 for a year to have a full-time worker that you would be sponsoring. So you can make a difference. You can make sure that these brothers and sisters in a persecuted country do not feel alone, that they know that people are they're supporting
Yep.
and sharing the gospel message.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I wish we had twice as much time. I'm just so thankful for what you are doing to serve Jesus and leading other people. And I'm so thankful that we are all given the same opportunity. We just need to be willing.
Yeah.
We have the website up on the screen. If you want more information, please contact ASAP Ministries. And we'll see you on the next episode of Better Life Today. God bless.